Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new analysis. This one, as you can probably tell, is taking place earlier in the week than it usually would. And that is because doing 2 videos this week is the only way I can finish the series before Christmas. As per the schedule I shared with you last week, that has since been slightly updated. Anyways, today's analysis is on the early story Funny Face, suggested by Can't Stop the Bacon and Kulfdra Legend. This story is based on the manga's 3rd chapter and can be found in episode 1 from 15 minutes and 44 seconds. The story in the manga begins with Nishikata being teased, leading him to have a loud reaction that embarrasses him in front of the entire class. However, in the anime, the story begins after this in the bathroom, with Nishikata standing in front of a bathroom mirror, wondering what he can do to get back at Takagi. It is at this point that Nakai enters the bathroom and says hello. He asks Nishikata if he is trying to make a pretty face in the mirror, but Nishikata dismisses that outright. Nakai then asks if he is trying to make a funny face. This gives Nishikata a great idea, and he begins experimenting with looks in the mirror. As he does this, Nakai begins to ask Nishikata if he and Takagi are going out. Before he can finish, Nishikata perfects his funny face and begins laughing. Nakai takes this as Nishikata trying to change the subject and goes to accuse him of liking Takagi. But before he can finish the accusation, Nishikata turns his way, and Nakai is so caught off guard and entertained by his face that he laughs out loud. We cut to Tanabe beginning his English class. We know he teaches English because of the English textbooks in Eraser, as well as some of the notes we can see on the board later in this very story. Nishikata decides that this will be the perfect time to execute his plan, that plan being to make Takagi laugh using his funny face, and have her get in trouble from Tanabe, as he is the most strict and scary teacher they have. As Nishikata plots and laughs about his plans, Takagi looks at him wondering what he is up to. Sometime into the class, Nishikata says that he wants to execute his plan right now, but that he needs to wait for her to try and tease him first. Takagi finally calls out for him, and while he initially acts as though he is listening, he springs his trap and reveals his funny face. Takagi just looks surprised, given how out of left field this is. However, then she looks unimpressed as she begins to realize what he is trying to do. Eventually, she has an idea. She pulls a mirror out of her desk and shows Nishikata his own reflection. Nishikata laughs at his own funny face and eventually gets told off by Tanabe. Takagi has her head buried in her arms as she laughs, before sitting up and telling Nishikata that she needed a moment to figure out what he was doing, but once she had figured it out, she realized how unimaginative it was. Nishikata is about to ask what she means, but Takagi cuts him off, telling him how he could have made a funnier face. Nishikata begins putting these suggestions into action in real time, letting Takagi instruct him on how to make a funny face. Nishikata realizes that it's kind of embarrassing to be getting advice from the person he is trying to mess with about how to mess with her, but he decides that he will do whatever it takes to achieve victory. Eventually, Nishikata completes his funny face and Takagi says that it looks good. Nishikata then asks why she isn't laughing, and she says she will laugh really hard if he turns to his side. He turns to his side and sees Tanabe standing right in front of him, and then this happens. Before he yells at Nishikata asking what he is doing. Nishikata apologizes profusely and Tanabe returns to the front of the room while asking him to take his class more seriously. Takagi laughs so hard that her stomach begins to hurt, and Nishikata realizes that he has gotten her to laugh at least, but she isn't getting into any trouble because of how quiet she is being. Of course, we will get into this more when we analyze first day of school, but for now we'll leave it at that and move on. Nishikata laments that she got him again, and he buries his head into his arms. Takagi calls his name but he does not respond. He tells himself that if he gets in trouble from Tanabe again, then he will really be in for it, so he cannot interact with Takagi anymore this class. Literally 1 minute passes before Nishikata becomes restless and glances over in Takagi's direction, and she is also laying on her arms and looking straight back at him. She says that he finally looked at her, and this embarrasses Nishikata. They stare at each other for a bit before Takagi challenges him to a staring contest, and on 3, she makes her funny face, the one she would go on to use in Ribs, Picture, and Portrait. Nishikata, who is caught off guard by this, begins laughing and gets in trouble from Tanabe yet again, likely leading to the punishment he receives in cleaning duty. He then narrates to the audience that nothing good happens when Takagi gets his heart racing, and the story ends. Believe it or not, there is actually quite a bit to get into with this story. I'll start with what it tells us about Tanabe because that point is the quickest to make. I think that the funniest part of this story, and possibly even the entire show, is that little chuckle that Tanabe exhibits. Every moment we see Tanabe before and after this tells us that he is a hard ass that barely ever shows any emotion other than anger, and is journey that catches him off guard, and for a split moment, his facade cracks. It humanizes it between Nishikata and Takagi. Why doesn't Nishikata just ignore her for the duration of class so that it can concentrate and won't get teased as often? Well, here's your answer. Nishikata is just as keen on interaction as Takagi is. He couldn't even go a single minute without looking at her. Lastly, we have the narration from Nishikata at the end about nothing good happening when Takagi gets his heart racing. Honestly, this line is pretty heavy-handed, but then again, so are a lot of the elements of the early stories. In Eraser, Nishikata is clearly disappointed when he thinks that somebody else's name is on Takagi's eraser. In Day Duty, it's very heavily implied that he is about to ask Takagi if she likes him. And now we have this line here at the end of Funny Face. Honestly, all these factors are here just to help set up one of the two core aspects of the show, that Takagi and Nishikata have romantic feelings for each other. Elements like this are less prominent in other stories until we get towards the end of the show. Speaking of which, I'll be analysing the notes or outtakes to this video. You can see them on my website, links in the description. If you want to see the films that I write and direct, check out my parent channel, Big Joe Productions. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.